Hello, I am Abby and welcome back to my channel. So since this weekend is the summer solstice and the beginning of summer, I thought I would go over my summer reading list that I hope to accomplish. I'm already off to a good start. I've started a few, which will be the first ones I talk about. But before I get started, I do want to put a little warning. Most of the books I'm going to recommend or say that are on my list, they have a lot of trigger warnings and deal with a lot of darker themes. So if those are not really your things or you have to look out for them, this might not be the video for you. But if it's okay and you just want to see what they are, keep watching and hopefully they will fit your reading style too. And also a lot of the books almost all the books I'm going to recommend are either based on Korean or Chinese history or events or by authors from those two countries. So just before we get started, I just want to put those out there between the dark themes, and where most of my books relate to in genres or themes, I guess. So we're having a very Korean Chinese summer and also kind of a darker themed summer, but I'm still super excited to read these books. So let's get started. So the first book I'm going to mention, I've actually already started. I'm about a third of the way through and I'm listening to it on audiobook, and that is The Daughters of Shandong by Eve J. Chung. I'm mainly listening to this book on my walks through my Spotify account. It's one of the books they offer, and this book follows a mother and her three daughters as they try to escape the Chinese Civil War. So it's set in the 1940s, and they were of a land-owning family, so they have to navigate against the communists, and they travel to different cities and eventually get to Taiwan to start a whole new life. And so it's about their journey and their escape. The themes also really touch on the effects of the patriarchal society before the Civil War and how it affects the mother and the daughters throughout their whole lives, and also just the effects and the bad things that happen through war and just what it takes a toll on them and the trials they have to go through on their journey to Taiwan and even afterwards. And this book is actually a debut book for this author, and from what I read, it's also based on her grandmother's story. So it's about her family and the real events that they went through. I think with that made this a very strong debut. I heard a lot about it, and so far I'm really enjoying it. There are points where it's kind of really hard or sad to listen to, just because, you know, there's tragic events and it's a war and there's things going on, but between the characters and the plot and the things going on in the story, I still want to continue, even though it is sad and hard to kind of listen to at points. So I'm really excited to kind of keep going and get through and see what happens with these characters. The main narrator is the eldest daughter, Hai, and it talks a lot about her relationship with her mother, with her grandmother, and then with her sisters, very based around the themes of these women relationships within this family and how the different themes, the war and the patriarchal society, kind of comes into play of how they survive and get around. And each character has like their distinct personalities and traits that help them or kind of hinder them at each point. So I'm really liking this book and I can't wait to see what happens in the rest of it. So the second book I'm going to talk about, I've already started also, but I'm not as far because it is a longer listen. I'm also listening to it on audiobook. I'm only about 5% of the way through, but that book is Alchemised. And I had heard about this book very much on social media, just kind of like more of praise for it and that people really liked it. I didn't really hear much about the plot, but this book is also a debut novel for Sin Lu Yu. And it wasn't until very recently, after I started listening to it, that I found out it was actually a reworking of a Harry Potter fanfiction based off a Hermione Draco fanfiction. So that's very interesting to kind of find out after I started reading it, but I'm still excited to work through it and see what happens. I don't recognize a lot of Harry Potter in this story so far, so I think it's just kind of loosely based off of it. And I decided to get this book because hearing about it so much, and then I found it on a really good sale. I think it was only $2 or $3 in the Apple bookstore audiobook store. So I decided to take the risk and buy it. So I'm working through it now. And this story follows a girl who was part of a resistance in a war, and then she was kind of put to sleep and woken up suddenly. And being the part of the resistance, the new leaders are trying to figure out why she kind of survived, and her powers and what she was doing in the resistance, what was her job. But the whole time she is a lot of memory loss, and also there are reworkings of her memories within her brain from the magic in the story. So they believe she holds a lot of secrets about the resistant party, and so they want to figure it out and work on her memories, or trying to extract what she knows, even though she doesn't even know what it is. So they send her to this very high necromancer person to kind of work on her brain. But I think secretly he's attached to her in her past in some way. I haven't gotten that far, so I don't know. It's just what I've read online, finding out more about the plot. So I'm very excited. This book does touch on a lot of darker things. It's listed as a dark fantasy romance, so especially since it's about war, there's a lot of physical and mental trauma that the characters go through or talk about. And also I think there are trigger warnings for like assault and other heavy things, so if those are things you have to look out for, I would check those before you maybe start reading this. So since I just started listening to this, I'm still in like the world building phase, but so far I really like the characters and kind of the backstory that I've learned so far. So I'm really excited to where this goes and what kind of happens, and figure out the mystery behind what she knows or what she doesn't know. Even with the darker themes and trigger warnings that I know about this book, I'm still looking forward to reading it and hoping that it really lives up to the hype that I saw online. So that is my second book that I'm hoping to finish. So for my third book this summer that I want to read, I actually just got yesterday in my library. It's been on hold for a couple months now, and so I finally got a hold of it actually last night. So I'm excited to start it and read it today. It is the first book of a trilogy, and this is a sci-fi story. This is the first time I've read kind of like more specific to sci-fi genre, so I'm really hoping to like it. And it is The Three Body Problem by Liu Cixin. Sorry, I don't know how to say his name in Chinese, but it is a Chinese novel, and it is set in the Chinese Cultural Revolution, which is in the 1960s, and that is the backdrop of the story. But it is very sci-fi because it deals with what happens when Earth contacts aliens, and then the aliens actually come, and the things that happen afterwards. I don't know actually a ton about the plot because it is a three book series, a trilogy. So I read, basically it's just about the dealings of what happens afterwards of contacting these aliens, and the aliens come and dealing with that. So I'm very excited to see about this book and if I like this genre. When I was researching Chinese authors, this book kept coming up and up along with many of the classics that I kind of already knew about. So I'm very excited to see if I enjoy this genre, the writer, and kind of this book and series to represent more modern day authors from China. So far I am only planning to read the first book of the trilogy. We'll see how captivated I am by the story, if I want to continue to read the other two. But the first book is called The Three Body Problems, the second one is called The Dark Forest, and the third one is called Death's End. And I think the whole series is called Remembrance of Earth's Past, or Past Earth. So if you also want to check it out, if you are really into sci-fi, or it also sounds interesting to you, or you just want to look it up and see more about it. But I believe the first novel that I'm going to read is more about the introduction of the world and then the consequences of contacting these aliens. So I'm excited to see how it turns out and how it goes, and if I plan on reading the next two books. In my summer reading next, I plan on actually reading a whole trilogy, a completely different trilogy, but still based off Chinese history. The Three Body Problem is based off more the Cultural Revolution, but the next one is loosely based off the events of the Opium Wars and the Sino-Japanese War. And this trilogy is the Poppy War Trilogy. It is written by R.F. Kuang. I think she's a very known author nowadays. She has many other books. I own one of her Fizzle books. She's also known for Babel, Cabassus, and I think one or two others. But since I haven't been able to really go through my physical books as quickly this year and more audiobooks, I do actually own the whole trilogy in audiobook, and so that's how I plan on consuming it this time, even though I think all three of them together is like 65-70 hours. So it will take me some time, but I do hope to finish the whole trilogy. This is a high fantasy trilogy based off those events that I mentioned earlier in China and Asia history. But all three of these books are rated very highly on different reading platforms, and so I have high hopes for them. I also am a big fan of high fantasy and things based off real cultural or real historical events, So I'm thinking this is very much in my alley, and going on the themes of reading things by Chinese authors or Chinese events, based off Chinese events. Three Body Problem, Daughters of Shandong, and then the Poppy War are kind of like my basis of this summer reading very highly into Chinese history and events put into these novels in different periods throughout the 20th century. These three books' themes focus a lot on war, addiction, and they even have some mythology mixed in. I think there's a little bit of magic put in these novels too, which is kind of right up my alley. So I'm really anticipating these to be really good to go through this summer. But they are further down on my list, so these might not get read until further into the summer. But we will see. I only know the basics of this plot is about a girl who goes into the military and finds she has certain types of powers, and then her country is thrown into war, and kind of the repercussions of that. Again, there are going to be very dark themes because it is a war, and it's going to go on the effects of war physically, mentally, and such. So again, if you have like trigger warnings for those types of things, PTSD and such, I would look up those before you maybe start reading this book too. I feel like a lot of the books I'm recommending this summer do have a lot of these themes, but that's kind of been my theme this whole year so far, or the books that I have enjoyed kind of have these themes. I don't know why, but just my type of reading so far this year. But I have enjoyed them, so I'm looking forward to enjoying this trilogy, and hopefully it is just as good as I hope. So the last book on my list of read is not actually based on Chinese events. It's actually a Korean book. It's called Behind Five Willows. I've seen promotions for this book for a while as she was writing it, the author. It's supposed to be a Korean historical novel based a lot with Pride and Prejudice themes, and if you don't know, Pride and Prejudice is my favorite book, and obviously I like Korean and Korean history, so these are kind of like two of my worlds colliding into this book, so I'm really excited to get it. And also the author of Behind Five Willows is Jane Her, and I have read other books of hers that I've really enjoyed. I read The Red Palace. I also own A Crane Among Wolves. Here's my copy of The Red Palace. I've read this one. I really enjoyed it. It's also a Korean historical novel. I haven't read this one yet, so if I finish Behind Five Willows, I might get to this one too. I really enjoyed her writing, and as you see, I hope to also get like a physical copy of Behind Five Willows. And since Pride and Prejudice is my favorite book, I have high hopes that I'm gonna really enjoy this one, because I already know I do like her writing and the things she adds in. So if it's based off that and it involves Korean history, I think I really will enjoy it. I think it's a little lighter of a read compared to my other books that I've recommended, but it follows two younger people within Korean history, and it also, I know, deals with banned books and kind of like, and the building of their relationship around these. So I'm excited to read it, even though it's lower on my list, so we'll see when I get to it. But yeah, Behind Five Willows, and then maybe Crane Among Wolves when I get around to it. But those are the main books I'm hoping to read this summer. Daughters of Shandong, Alchemised, Three Body Problem, the Poppy War Trilogy, and Behind Five Willows are the main books that I'm looking forward to read this summer. If I happen to finish those, I will probably get to the other books I mentioned, the other two books of the Three Body Problem Trilogy, Crane Among Wolves, and then also I have a couple other books in my physical copies. If I get around to it, I hope to get to. I have this one that I recently got. It's The River That Drags Her Down by Ji-hoon Yoon. This is based off Korean folklore, and it's like a sister come back alive and the repercussions of that. And it just sounded really interesting when I stopped by the bookstore not long ago, so I picked it up. But I don't have exactly plans to read this anytime soon. So maybe at the end of the summer if I get through all of my other books. But yeah, those are the books I'm hoping to read this summer. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these, or if you have any other recommendations that you might think go along with these books. Or maybe if any of these books sound interesting to you and you hope to read them too. But I hope you guys have a great summer ahead, and I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, if you want to be someone, why not be you? Bye-bye!